Hey, today I'm going to share with you my 3-step process to guarantee a nice draw every single time with your irons. We're going to talk a little bit about the setup. I got a really cool thing in your takeaway, one little pivot thing, and then this really bizarre drill with the trail eye that actually I found out really works well. So let's get right into this. Now, in order to hit a nice high draw with the irons, we got to hit the ball first, all right? We're going to talk a little bit about that, okay? And of course, we got to swing it a little bit from the inside with a square club face. So step one is getting set up correctly. What I want you to do is when you set up here, put your feet together, and you're going to go ahead and position the club face behind the golf ball. Now, I want you to make sure that the club face is perfectly square to your target. Now, in this situation, my target is that green barber pole down the driving range there. So the club face is aimed right at that barber pole. However, my feet and my hips and my shoulders are ever so slightly close to that. So when I look down here, my toes are a little bit to the right of the target line, while the club face is still perfectly square to the target line. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, Todd. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I do that? Well, because believe it or not, one of the easiest ways for amateur golfers, especially my experienced golfers out there, right, to learn to swing the club from the inside is to slightly angle the body for a draw, i.e. to the right of the target. So when your feet and your hips and your shoulders are slightly aimed to the right or in a closed position, while the club face is in a square position, that naturally promotes more of an inside to out swing path, combined with that square face, and we're gonna get the draw. So step one is setting your body up to promote the inside to out swing path with the square club face. All right, number two has to do with the takeaway. Then we're gonna talk about the pivot and that really cool eye drill that I referenced earlier. On the takeaway, this is where the most people make a mistake if they tend to slice their irons, is that when they swing the club back, they tend to rotate and fan the club face open. What I want you to feel is I want you to feel like you're going to take the butt end of the club and you're going to move the butt end of the club away from the target so the club face is more in this position. See how the club face, the angle of the club face, let's say that's about a 45-degree angle. That's a draw position. This over here is more of a slice position. Now, could you draw it from this position over here? Sure, you could, but I wouldn't suggest you do that. Try to get it more in this position right here where it's at a 45-degree angle. Once again, how do you feel that? Well, when you start your golf swing, just take the butt end of the club and move the butt end of the club away from the target initially, and then the club will naturally get in this position. So already, I've got my body aligned for the inside out swing path. I've got control over the club face in my takeaway. I'm 2/3 of the way there. The third piece of the puzzle is the pivot. Remember how we said earlier, in order to hit a draw, you got to hit the ball first. Now, a lot of that has to do with the pivot, okay? And when we're hitting an iron, for the most part, we want the ball to be positioned in the middle of our heels. And we talk all about the setup in the vertical line swing system. You can read all about that in our book, The Bad Lie. If you want to dive deep into those types of things, that's all there. But for today's purposes, we're talking more just about the pivot. Now, when we pivot with an iron especially, we want to stay relatively centered. Okay, meaning my upper body turns, okay, but my upper body stays relatively centered. It doesn't necessarily drift way off the golf ball this way. It certainly doesn't go forward. It stays relatively centered, all right? Now, how you feel that? Well, that's where this drill comes in. What I want you to do, if you're struggling in your contact, you're hitting the ground and then you're hitting the ball, what I want you to do is focus on the golf ball and your takeaway out of your trail eye. I'm a right-handed golfer. My trail eye is my right eye. So when I'm sitting here, got my club face squared up, okay, I got my slightly closed stance. When I swing the club back, I'm moving the butt end, but I'm looking at the golf ball out of my right eye. Okay, and what that'll do is that'll keep my head more centered versus looking at the golf ball out of my left eye like this. Notice how my upper body drifted off. Now I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but you get the idea. Because when my upper body's over here, the bottom of my swing will tend to want to stay back. So let's tie all this together. Here we go. All right, so we got our club face nice and squared up. I'm gonna get my stance ever so slightly closed. All right, here we go. As I move it away, I'm moving the butt end of the club a little bit away from the golf ball. I'm looking at the golf ball out of my right eye. All right, that's much better. That helps me hit the ball first contact. These are the 3 steps to helping you hit a nice high draw with your irons. If you liked this video and you found it helpful, be sure to check out my next video. And if you want to personally work with me and our golf team on your game, check out vlscoaching.com.